Hey everybody, Chip Towers of Dog Nation back here with you, dognation.com, Dog Nation the app, Dog Nation everything. Welcome to Facebook Live. This episode of Towers Take is brought to you by Marco's Pizza, America's favorite pizza company, as we all know, where you can get authentic Italian pizza delivered directly to you. And I do all the time, and I highly recommend it. It's great stuff. So thanks to Marcos for allowing this to happen. Thanks to Mark LeBlanc and the guys back in the studio at Cox Media Group for making this thing happen today and every week when we do it. And thanks for you guys for being here on a Wednesday. We moved it from Thursday because of the Thanksgiving holiday. But we did want to get a chance to talk Georgia Tech. We can talk a little Kentucky. We can talk, as always, whatever you guys want to talk about. Let me make sure I'm able to get your comments here in a minute. Let's see if we're coming through there. Yes, it looks like you are. Hello, Cleavon Jennings. Hello, Winfred Steinspring. Hello, Rhea Reading Watkins. Andre Harris, Cindy Gatlin Edwards, Christy Moran says it's yummy pizza. It is, Christy, so obviously you've tried it. They're all over Atlanta. And good to see you guys. You never know. Obviously, we're moving things around. It's a Thanksgiving holiday. I'm looking forward to having my family here in my house in Watkinsville for Thanksgiving this year. And I hope everybody's able to stay home. Cindy Edwards points out that Roquan is from his Macon County, and he is awesome. Yes, Cindy, he is awesome. In fact, Roquan is up for several national awards at this point. He's a finalist for the Bednarik Award, and he's a finalist for the Butkus Award. Butkus going to the finest linebacker, Bednarik going to the finest defender of all. And I think he certainly is worthy of that. Hello, Bridget Medlock and Patsy Duke Hutchison. Scott Barman says Rec Tech. Brian Brannick. Nick and Sonya are the two best backs in college football all time. Up at the same time, always asking me a question if Nick and Sonya. That's tough to say. I mean, there's been some great backs who have come through, not just college football, but Georgia in particular. I mean, remember that group that Georgia had here in the 1980s? I think Rodney Hampton, Tim Worley, Keith Henderson, Lars Tate might have all been there at once. If they weren't, 3 or 4 of them were. That was about as good of a group as you could ever have. Remember, Terrell Davis and Garrison Hurst were at Georgia at the same time. In fact, it's because of Garrison Hurst that Terrell Davis didn't get a ton of playing time that one year in particular, mainly a hamstring injury. But, Hurst was the man when he was here, and Terrell wasn't able to show everything he had because of that injury that he had. Emery Waller says, go Dogs. Jeffrey Scott Henderson Jr. says, running back you, baby. I do believe that. I mean, I do think Georgia has a claim on running back you, probably better than most any, program in the country. Certainly Alabama has had great tailbacks, but if you look, I think I wrote about this. I know I blogged about it not too long ago about, Georgia's backs versus Alabama's backs over the years. Certainly if you take into account success at the next level, Georgia's got the edge in that regard. They've really put some great backs in the league. And certainly Nick Chubb and Sony Michel, I think, are going to fall into that category. Hope you had a chance to read the story I wrote. Put it up last night after practice. Both Nick Chubb and Sony Michel were available for interviews after Tuesday's practice. And they were great. They were typical of like they are. And I said the likenesses and differences of Nick Chubb and Sony Michel, and they are very different in personality. But actually, I think if you look at them very closely, they're very much the same as football players. I mean, Sony gets credit for kind of being the faster one and the more versatile of the two backs, and he certainly is that. But as he pointed out, Nick Chubb is every bit as fast as he is, and I would imagine, given the same opportunities, is just as good at catching the ball out of the backfield. Now, when you see my eyes lighting this way, I'm watching your comments on my iPad over there, so that's what I'm looking at when I'm doing that. And a lot of great comments here today. Let's see what Brian Brannick has to say. For the limited amount of touches they have, even shared with three other backs, I think they're the best at one time, and there's certainly an argument for that. And, kind of the narrative about Georgia right now is how much running is too much running. Are they one-dimensional as a team? I think, Kirby has said as much. He'd like to see more balance. I thought Georgia made a bit of a mistake. Now, they weren't getting much in the way of protection, but I thought they should have tried to throw the ball a little bit more against Auburn, certainly a lot more on first down, and we saw that trend carry over into the Kentucky game. In fact, Seth and I counted 9 consecutive offensive plays to start the game in which Jim Chaney called for a run. That's too much. You got to shake it up. It was okay against Kentucky, and Kentucky was stuffing it at that time, and then eventually Georgia had to throw a little bit on first down. When they did, everything opened up. I don't think it makes us better than Jim Chaney. I think they obviously have a call sheet, and they want to establish the run first and foremost more than anything else. But you just got to mix it up. You can't be predictable against these defenses, and that's going to be turned up tenfold as you go into the SEC championship game and any postseason that comes after that. As for Georgia Tech, they're pretty good, defensively, not great. They give up 144 yards rushing. Georgia Tech does. They're not bad on defense, but heck, they gave up 318 yards to Duke. What do you do with that? Dale Owen here, I want to address this question real quick, and we'll get back to Tech and defending the run. Says, I wonder why they're never on the field at the same time. Auburn did well under Tubby with Cadillac Williams and Ronnie Brown. But, yeah, that was different, though. And it's hard to run 2 backs at the same time. Georgia's done it a couple of times, but when you have 2 backs in a split backfield, one of them's not going to end up the ball. One of them's going to do something that they're not, is not the best thing they do, which is essentially block for the other one. And that's why you don't see that. And there's much more variables that you can bring into the equation with just one back. Now, they do occasionally line up Sonya in the slot. They have had them both in the backfield. There's some cross-buck stuff you can do. But generally, I think they're better off. I wish they did a lot more 2-back with Christian Payne back there. Personally, I'm a little old school in that regard, but I do think it's very effective, especially when everybody's getting blocked. Mike Mizell pointed out that DeAndre Swift will be twice as good next year. I don't know about that, but I do think there are indications that DeAndre Swift will be as good, if not better, than Chubb and Michelle. That's hard to say. Chubb's leaving as the second most prolific back in Georgia history behind Herschel Walker, and one of the best in SEC history. Alan Verbonnet wants to know what time I'm eating my Thanksgiving meal. Late, actually. I'm eating it late in the day because I have family members that are doing other Thanksgivings elsewhere, so I'm going to do the late one. A lot of people here talking about getting tight ends more involved. Seth Emerson did a great piece on Dog Nation, if you get a chance to read that, about why Georgia's not throwing to the tight end more. Essentially, Kirby is non-apologetic when it comes to that. They'll throw to the tight ends when the tight ends are open. That's what he said. And certainly Georgia's not throwing it much. And when they do, they tend to target Javon Wims, Terry Godwin, or McCole Hardman for good reason. Van West agrees with me about the I formation. Welcome, David Call. Welcome, Michael Morrow. Glad you're here. T.O. Willingham is here. Believes that you can get them both involved, creative on the field with both of them there. Swing passes are good, but the problem is the same thing people are talking about talking about screen passes. Screen passes are effective when you're throwing the ball a lot, and then you want to, catch a heavy rush by surprise, either on a draw or a screen pass. Just as much as Georgia's backs are targeted, though, I don't think it's as effective. Jeffrey Scott Henderson Jr. wants to know, in my opinion, who gets drafted first, Sonya or Nick? That is a great question. I tell you what, I think they'll go close, side by side. And if they're not both first rounders, I think that'll generally speak a little bit more to the NFL trend of getting backs. But I would say, there's a good chance that Sony might go first just because of the versatility he's displayed in school. And he's actually got a little less wear and tear on him. He hasn't had a major injury like Nick Chubb does. But I think both of them will have long NFL careers. Brian Brannick says that he believes that Javon Wims will be huge Saturday, and I believe he will too. I'm working on a piece right now today at my desk right over there on Javon Wims that you'll be able to read on Thanksgiving. Now, look, guys, it's on Thanksgiving. There's not a lot of traffic on Thanksgiving online. I'm asking you guys, use your Dog Nation app, come online, because we have our regular lineup of stuff running on Thursday. You're going to have Seth Emerson's mailbag. So even though you're hanging out with the family, man, take a minute after you've ingested all that turkey and dressing, and you got all that tryptophan in your body, sit back in the easy chair, pull up your Dog Nation app, and read all this great stuff that we're producing. I think actually Thanksgiving is a great day to sit around and read the paper. Remember when we got the printed newspaper, the Thanksgiving paper used to be that thick with all those Black Friday deals? It's the same thing online. We've got all that stuff there for you. Mark Cole wants to know, can Auburn beat Bama? I have a Towers Take up online right now. Towers Take is brought to you by Marco's Pizza, by the way. And once you get past all that turkey this week, you'll want a Marco's Pizza either tonight on Wednesday night or Friday when you're tired of eating turkey sandwiches. But yeah, Auburn can absolutely beat Alabama. I think we saw that Auburn could beat anybody. We were joking when we left Jordan Hare Stadium that Saturday that the Cleveland Browns might have gotten beaten in there. Maybe that's not a good one. Maybe the New England Patriots. No, it seems like the Cleveland Browns are always the one compared to Alabama could beat the Cleveland Browns. But no, I think Auburn is certainly capable of beating Alabama, and I think that's the better option for Georgia, as you'll read in Towers Take that I have posted on Dog Nation now. Spoiler alert, but I think Auburn would be the better choice of the two, even though they just hammered Georgia. I think a lot of that had to do with the home environment that Auburn was playing in. I think a lot of it had to do with the gaffes, self-inflicted wounds that not only did they, not only were they self-inflicted wounds, but they were just as ill-timed as you could possibly get with the personal foul penalties, the special teams gas, and the muffed punt. Just one of those things. Georgia really made it easy on Auburn that day. I guess they had it in them, this year, but that's the only loss to this point. So I think Georgia would do better playing Auburn and have a better chance of beating Auburn. With that said, I think they can beat Alabama. I think they would have a harder time beating Alabama. I think Alabama is Alabama for a reason, and Nick Saban has been able to do what he can do for a reason, so you don't want to take that on if you don't have to. James Gage points out that Kirk Herbstreit agreed with my thing. Yeah, that was interesting because Seth and I had been talking about, and Daniel Shirley, our sports editor, that I was going to write that Auburn versus Alabama thing for Wednesday, for today. It appeared today, posted today. It stays up there the whole time. But and then Seth talked to Herbie, as they call him in the ESPN folks call him, Kirk Herbstreit, yesterday morning. He got a good long time with Herbie, and he had a lot of insight. Milt Gilbert wants to know what the deal is with Michael Chigbu. Look, man, it's competition over there, and there's not a lot of opportunities going around in the wide receiver corps. So once you get past Javon Wims, Terry Godwin, Mecole Hardman, and Riley Ridley, there's just not a whole lot of wide receiver opportunities And when they haven't had those guys on the field, they tended to have Jason Stanley and Trey Blunt or what's his name, the other guy, I apologize, Tyler Simmons. Of course, they're not fooling anybody. When those guys are on the field, they're usually running the football because they're their best blockers. So, yeah, it's just not many opportunities for Chigbu. Chigbu's a good player. He's still here. He's out there working hard, and I would imagine you'll see some more of him. And I assume we get some special teams. I'm not sure. I'll look for that this week. Desmond Thornton points out it seems like 90% of Jake Fromm's interceptions are on timing routes. I think that's true. They're what I call first read routes. You know, there are secondary routes, and he's got to recognize when it's covered. But that one against Kentucky has been kind of like every one he's thrown. It has tended to be in the flat or on a slant, and it's when he was looking Javon Wims down all the way. That linebacker, whoever it was that picked it off for Kentucky, only had to take 2 steps to jump the route and really not do anything fancy to do that. So they got to do a better job of that. There's my cousin Christopher Moore. Ladies and gentlemen from the Moore side, how you doing, Christopher? Hope you're well. Thanks for tuning in. Ron Connor, do you think you should be in front of OU in the power rankings? No, not really. You know, I said this back when Georgia was number 1. You know, those power rankings, they're great. They matter. They matter more as you get down these last couple of weeks where we are. But Georgia's, you know, controls its own destiny, so it doesn't matter. If Georgia wins out, they're in the playoffs. If they lose to Tech and win the SEC championship, they might be out. That's what makes this game particularly important. You would be a 2-loss team. You'd be thrown in there with everybody else. You would have been blown out by Auburn and lost to a 5-5 Tech team. So that would pretty much do them in, I think, whether they won the championship or not. Though they'd still be difficult to keep out. It would all depend on what everybody else had. But I think that's a very unlikely scenario. Here's Chris Sanders. Is this Dominic Sanders' brother, Chris? Let me know, Chris, if you are. Have great respect for Chris. He wasn't able to finish his career at Georgia, but finished his career elsewhere. He's been an honorable young man, and his brother Dominic has done a fantastic job. Love Dom. Been a good dog, damn good dog, as they like to say. And he's right. He says Georgia hasn't passed as much this year because they have a freshman quarterback, and the O-line is weak on pass pro. That's Chris Sanders talking, and that's I do believe that's an accurate breakdown. And he says that Georgia's offensive line got exposed against Auburn. I wouldn't say it got exposed necessarily because I think Auburn's special on the D-line. And I think Georgia can do a better job than they did. And they did do a good job. If you think back to that first drive and the last drive, they did a pretty decent job. In between, they had a lot of breakdowns. Lee Hall says, don't you think Chaney needs to expand the playbook by throwing to the tight end more? I think tight ends should be targeted more often just because of what I've seen from Charlie Warner and Isaac Nauta and Jeb Blazevich. I do believe they're a matchup problem, but they are. I'm looking at something here, but they are. They got to get open, and it's just in the grand scheme of what Georgia's trying to do to get the ball to Sony and Nick first, and then those other guys second. It's just they're just falling down the pecking order. There's just not enough opportunities. Jukabaya Barlow says, "Okay, Chip, pronounce my name." Am I getting it right? Jukabaya, Jukabia, Jukabaya Barlow. Let me know if I got that right, Juke. And thanks for hanging out here. We appreciate it. Ricky Whitworth says Auburn will beat Alabama. It actually says Auburn, we will beat Alabama. But he has a bulldog in his profile pic, so I'm assuming he doesn't mean we. But I think Auburn certainly can. Chris Sanders says he's not that Chris Sanders, but thanks for the comment. Okay, Chris, well, good to know, but you do have very astute observations of football, and I do appreciate it. John Stoner says, go Dawgs. That's a great name there, John. John Stoner. There was a guy who played at Clarkston High School back when I was young, and my sister graduated from Clarkston High School. His name was Stony Wall, and he was a great lineman. John Stoner, I don't know if you were a great lineman in your own right or if you like the herb maybe, but either way, it's very applicable there. Okay, it's Juke B, he says. It's not Jukabaya. He said good try, though. Juke B. What do you say, Juke B? Thanks for hanging out with us. Christopher Cromer, keep ignoring me. I'm sorry, Christopher. I'm not ignoring you. What do you got to say, buddy? Repeat your question. I'm going to be looking for you. Oh, SEC Championship game day. What day is it, are you asking? Well, that's Saturday, December 2nd, 4 p.m., CBS TV. Be there. We will. We'll have a big crew, as you can imagine, there for the SEC Championship game, and we will have it covered coming and going. We'll be there early. We'll be there on Friday. It'll be quite the scene in downtown Atlanta. I am interested in seeing this. And let me ask you guys this here. I'm still looking at you, Christopher, Christopher Cromer, in case you have another question. I don't want to miss you. I am not ignoring you. I'm eager to see what that downtown Atlanta scene is going to be. How well are you going to come out, Dog Nation? You've had 4 weeks nearly, or you will have when the game comes, to secure SEC Championship game tickets. I think that's key to this game. If that's any way kind of a home field environment for Georgia, it certainly can help. Kevin Jones asked for a score prediction. I gave one to Ken Segura today. He did the opposing view for me, which posted 4 o'clock on Dog Nation, and I did one for him, and I think I picked 41-23. And here's what I'm thinking. I mean, in general, if Georgia Tech, for me, it's always Georgia's offense against Georgia Tech. I don't think they can score with you if you score big, and this Georgia offense is capable of scoring big. Generally, if the score stays in the 20s or right there in the 30s, Tech has a chance. If you get up there, it doesn't. And I think Georgia, I mean, look what Duke did on this defense. I'm sure that's an anomaly, an aberration. That's what Georgia would say, but it shows what the vulnerability of Georgia Tech's defense, and I think Georgia will be able to take advantage of those vulnerabilities. And I just think Tech's defense will have a harder time slowing down Georgia's offense than in the inverse. Mike Mizell, I'm not ignoring you. Actually, people say I go to you too much, Mike Mizell. You pose good questions, and for whatever reason, your timing it catches my eye every time. Who else we got here? Jake Frigo, or is it Frigo, while we're dealing with pronunciations here? If the Dogs in Miami don't make the playoffs, could you see them facing off in a New Year's Six? Absolutely. I would think if Georgia and Miami, neither one make the playoff, if I'm on a bowl selection committee or whatever, those don't matter as much nowadays, I would be busting my butt to get those two together. You kidding me? I love the idea of Georgia and Miami playing together. And it's not just the Rick and Smart thing. Certainly that's a big part, and we would like that at Dog Nation. But they're ACC and SEC teams, and they don't play enough. They haven't played enough. Certainly people don't like this, but probably the most likely destination if Georgia does not make the playoffs is the Chick-fil-A because of the whole Atlanta connection stuff. I'm hoping that Georgia and the bowl selection process can negotiate themselves out of that, because me personally, I want to go to the Orange Bowl. I want to go to Miami, right? Or somewhere where it's warm, maybe the Fiesta Bowl or something like that. But it all depends on what everybody else has got and who's going. Kenny Paul Stacy picks Georgia 38-13. Chad Donaldson says Auburn or Alabama. Who do I think is going to win, I guess? I don't know. I think Alabama, because why would you ever pick against Alabama? But I think Auburn is certainly capable of winning that game. Christopher White predicts Chubb 3 TDs and Sonya 2 TDs this game. It was just the inverse against Kentucky. 5 TDs out of your backs would be a good thing. Steve Mitchell wants to know how the punter is doing after getting hurt last week. Steve Mitchell, actually, he's doing quite well. He actually finished that game, and that's a big deal. It's a good question because Cameron Nizelek, graduate transfer from Columbia University, has been one of the great gets and one of the reasons Georgia's in the position that it is. Danny Smith says, can anyone tell me why the SEC championship tickets are more expensive than any other championship game ticket? Supply and demand, my friend. Supply and demand. I mean, you got to think about it. Georgia's already in there, and Alabama or Auburn, either one, is going to flood that venue, especially with it being in Mercedes-Benz Stadium for the first time. It'll be my first chance at going in that facility, and I'm looking forward to that. Kevin Jones has been in Cleveland, played well last week. I thought he played okay. He didn't play great, but he played okay. He played good. Julian Hall says that it would be a real test to play Miami, and I agree, Julian. You know, kind of anybody at this point is going to be tough. There are no easy ones. Alan Verbonik likes Miami and UGA in the national championship game, and that is the dream matchup for us. That would be absolutely great. Can you imagine the storylines? And it'd be great to visit with Mark Richt for an extended period of time and his family. And look, y'all, there, you know, as much as Georgia fans like to debate the Mark Richt versus Kirby Smart, those two don't have a problem with each other. We've only got a few more minutes left. Let me get some more questions in here. Brian Brannick wants to know if Samir White will redshirt after the ACL injury. It certainly depends on his recovery. I doubt it, though. You know, I mean, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but it all depends on how well his recovery is and it goes. And he has time, certainly, to be able to compete in Georgia's camp. It hurts him for spring practice and all that, and that's the best way to end up making a big impact. Danny Smith would like to see Georgia go out west in the Fiesta Bowl, Georgia versus USC. That'd be a great one. Trip Davidson says the O-line was exposed, and I can't disagree with you on. James Gates wants me to talk a little bit about Jacob Eason. Look, guys, he's there. He's working hard. He still wears a fairly significant brace. Right now, he's your second team quarterback. And I don't think you're going to see him unless you have to. And in this last game against Kentucky, understandably, they brought in Bryce Ramsey to finish on senior day. Eric Fawn. Did I miss you, Eric? Eric Fawn, P-H-A-N, or fan. Ask me another question. I'm not trying to ignore you. You guys are hammering on me today. Got about 2 minutes left here. Let's see what else we got. Jonathan Chapman says, who do you want to see play in the SEC championship game? Well, I would fully say go to dawgnation.com and read my entire Towers take on that, and you'll know where I stand on it. But I think Auburn would be the better of two. Okay. But you still need to go read it, okay? Christopher Cromer points out he thinks Kirby Smart is the perfect coach for Georgia. He is certainly doing a good job so far, ahead of schedule, I would say. Lee Hall wants to know if Zamir has had his surgery yet. I don't think so. It usually takes a little time. They let the swelling go down and stuff. Unfortunately, I've dealt with a lot of these. Down to 1 minute. UGA chance is very good for against Auburn, Stacy Goebel says. Auburn to beat UGA twice will be hard to do. I agree. Let's see. We're going to have to start saying goodbyes here. Anybody else? Ray Broden. Chance we see O-line with Baker in and not Cleveland. I would say not. Though possibly you could see Cleveland at left guard, maybe. That wouldn't be, you imagine both Cleveland and Kinley in there. Yes, I do know. Alan Verbonik says, do I know that Rick called a Miami, Georgia in the national championship game just weeks after he hired at Miami? He did. He actually did that at the senior gala. He came back for Georgia. Thank you, Ricky Whitworth. Thank you, Christopher Cromer. Brian Brannick, Keith Folds, picking 38-20 like 1980. I like it. That's all the time I have right now. I want to thank all you guys who came on here, and a lot of you did come on the day before Thanksgiving. I appreciate it. I hope all of you have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. I'm certainly looking forward to it and looking forward to the Georgia Tech game. Thank you to Marco's Pizza, America's favorite pizza company. They bring you authentic Italian pizza straight to your house, and they bring you Towers Take on Facebook Live every week, and I thank them for that. We'll see y'all later.